Hi, my name is Valerie. I'm a part of the data engineering team here at Quix, and today I'm going to talk about two exciting, can you hear me now? Two exciting technologies that power up the majority of our data platform, Presto and Quix. You are probably all familiar with Presto, so I'm not going to explain anything about it. And I'm going to make a surprise about Quix, the Presto IDE that we have developed here at Quix. So this talk is about four different topics. First, I'm going to talk about Quix, give you some numbers, talk about the role of the data engineering team here at Quix. Then I'll present you different types of business data that we manage at our data lake. Explain you about a unique Presto installation that we manage, and talk about the Quix IDE. Cool. So Quix, a huge global company with many millions of registered users, millions of premium customers. 2,600 of employees work at Quix, and more than half of them are using Quix, the IDE, as part of their daily work. More than 1,000 microservices deployed at Quix servers that power up different features of Wix.com platform. And in order to measure all these features, business analysts and product managers defined more than 12,000 different BI events. To give an example, a BI event, it's a page view on Wix.com. A BI event, it's a click on the publish button or premium purchase. So those are 3 BI events, and we have 12,000 different types of them. In terms of throughput, we managing about 3 billion of daily BI events, and in terms of storage, it's ranging from 3 to 4 terabytes daily. These slides represent the pace of innovation here at Quix. As you can see, every year we are releasing completely new and very complex products. Each one of these products undergoes a very intensive A/B testing and tuning phases, where every tiny user interaction is covered with BI event. And in technical difficulty. And Quix is not just a software engineering company. Quix is a data-driven company. And measuring each one of the new and existing feature is as important as having a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. So what does it mean in context of a data engineering team at Quix? We are an enabler of a fast pace of Quix innovation. We must enable Quix to define more BI events, to produce more data, and business analysts to reach the decisions much faster, to shorten the iteration cycles. And if I translate it to actual work, at data engineering, we maintain several clusters. We maintain infrastructure for our data lake. We collect raw data from production in terms of BI logs or DB replications. And we develop and maintain many different self-service tools that enable all Quix employees to query the data, to explore the data that Quix users generate. And also we return smarter data back to production in terms of analytics, user personalization, and machine learning pipelines. In the next few slides, I'll give you a glimpse about different self-service tools that we developed at Quix. Here you can see Quix, the Presto IDE that I'm going to talk a bit later. This is a BI feature store that allows you to manage machine learning data sets. BI profile service that allows you to update real-time personalization rules in production. A BI catalog, which is a tool for adding new BI events or updating existing ones. A complete self-service open to every employee at Quix. A BI user explorer that given a user ID allows you to see the history of all BI events that user produced during his life at Wix. So let's talk about different data types that we manage. First of all, the BI events. BI events are managed by business analysts and product managers. They think about them when they define the success criteria of each feature at Wix. And in order to send a new BI event in production, you have to define it in BI catalog and implement it on production according to those definitions. In terms of storage, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 3 billion of BI events daily, and each BI event is stored in HBase as a first stop. And once a day, we export all those BI events from last 24 hours into Parquet on S3. So 2 storage options for BI events. The next data type that I want to cover are the DB replication. Every microservice usually manage a database with 1 or more tables. We want them inside our data lake, so we either query them directly as a MySQLs, or bring them as Parquet files on HDFS or S3, or in some cases, due to security regulations, we have to secure them with security groups. We upload them to a SQL Server. So another data type and 3 more storage options. And the last data type that I want to cover are user-generated content. Wix users are creating their online presence that generate tons of data. Very interesting for analysis, for data science, machine learning. Millions of websites, hundreds, thousands of websites updated daily, and we uploaded this data to BigQuery. So I mentioned 3 different data types, 5 or more different storage options. And somewhere in 2015, we were looking for an upgrade for our BI infrastructure, and we needed some query engine, preferably very fast, because we were using Apache Pig before, preferably SQL, because we were using Apache Pig before. Ideally, something that is written in Java, because we had tons of legacy code written in Java that connects Apache Pig to different data sources that we manage, and Presto was an ideal match. So let me explain you about the unique Presto installation that we manage. For some numbers, we have above a few hundred weekly queries from 10 distinct clients. We manage more than 10 different catalogs, which correspond to different plugins. Most of them were written in-house, and some of them are forks from the official Presto distribution. And those catalogs expose 34,000 different tables, which is pretty impressive. So what's so unique about Presto installation here at Wix? First, we use a combination of on-demand machines and spot instances on Amazon. We developed tons of in-house plugins. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you some of them. So the first one is a Parquet plus HBase optimizing plugin. As I mentioned before, every BI event is entering into HBase as a first stop. And once a day, we export it back to S3. So we could have give our users 2 different storage options, and they might have queried them by themselves and do some union and filtering magic to get the correct data. Instead, we decided to expose only a single table. Let's call it users. And here I presented 2 different queries. First one is tries to select all the data up to today, up to midnight of today. And in this case, our engine will decide to fetch data only from Parquet on S3. And in case a user tries to select the data both from yesterday and from the early hours of today, our plugin will decide to fetch data from both storages. The next capability that we have developed is something that we call a native syntax execution. We developed both BigQuery and SQL Server plugins on top of BigQuery Java API and SQL Server JDBC driver. Those plugins are great, but sometimes we need to access that specific syntax of BigQuery or specific syntax of Transact SQL, or maybe to push down the filter back to BigQuery. So we developed something called native SQL. As you can see here, there are two snippets. One is written in Transact SQL dialect, and there's some alias called prod users. And a bit later in the second snippet, we are using here as is, seamlessly in Presto, without any data type conversion. Everything is happening behind the scenes. The next integration that I wanted to show is a integration with Active Directory. Historically, all Wix employees are part of Active Directory with one or more security groups, and many parts of Wix data contain sensitive information like user email or user phone. So we wanted to protect the data based on user security groups, and every time user tries to access privileged data, we will pop up a notification and ask him to confirm his identity. And then we will pass the identity over the plugin and do the verification. And the last integration I wanted to show you is the G Drive integration. We gave the ability to our users just to upload data to a team drive as a spreadsheet. And those users can query it as a Presto tables. Simple and easy. We have hundreds of such data sets in production. A bit about our clients. We have 100,000 queries daily coming from very different clients. Some of them are ad hoc queries from Quix. Some of them are different reporting tools, Tableau, Power BI, Sisense, different schedule job frameworks, Uzi, Airflow, sometimes even Crontab, and different production integration. So the load is very different. The queries are very, very different. An ad hoc query can finish in 1 second, and a scheduled job might calculate the KPI of last months. And the next thing I wanted to cover is the Quix IDE that we have developed. A few facts about Quix. It's used by more than half employees at Wix. It's a notebook manager, and Wix employees created more than 100,000 different nodes. We have 400 weekly users, many daily queries initiated from Quix. We use Quix to manage scheduled jobs, and those scheduled jobs and all Wix users created more than 3,400 different tables. So let me go over different Quix capabilities. First of all, Quix is a notebook manager. You can arrange your node inside of a notebook. You can have many nodes inside of a single notebook. You can update them, rename them, delete them, reorder them, and so on. You can organize your notebook inside of a nested hierarchy of folders. Of course, you can have many notebooks inside of a single folder. You can rename, delete, and do any kinds of operations. You can share your notebook just by copying and sending the URL. The receiving user will be able to execute the code, but he will not be able to edit your query. The query is read-only. Next capability is different node types that we have developed. Today we support 5 different node types. We have the plain Presto. We have native nodes that I mentioned earlier. We have UI-only path and funnel visualizations that are very coupled with the Wix data. And we have Python nodes. The next thing is a dataset explorer. we show you all the catalogs, schemas, and tables that are visible in your Presto cluster, and allow to drag and drop to start querying your data. The next thing is the smart editor that we have. It supports multiple data sets. It supports variables, syntax highlighting, run a selection, download results as a CSV, supports error highlighting and syntax validation. The next animation is about syntax validation that we have. Right now the syntax is better. The next animation is about fetching a wrong column, and we will highlight the error line inside of the editor. The next thing is the job scheduler. On top of Apache Uzi, we developed capability to manage a lifecycle of a job. A job is made of documentation, a script itself, a scheduling policy, execution history, a history of changes, a job owner, and so on. And the last thing is something that we call public scripts. Those are scripts that have a distinct life cycle. They have job owner, a history of changes, and so on. It's like a scheduled job, but without a scheduling policy. And those allow us to manage a life cycle of some very important scripts at Quix. So a small recap of what we have seen. So Quix is a notebook manager. We support different node types. We have Smart Editor, Dataset Explorer, Job Scheduler public nodes. I didn't cover search. We can search upon all the queries, owner names, node types, and so on. And the big announcements that I wanted to make is that Quix is going open source. Thank you. You can go to this repo, Quix incubator/Quix. It's already open. Just go there and give us a star. The first phase, we are releasing a bit slimmer version of in-house Quix with the Presto nodes, notebooks, folders, editor, Dataset Explorer, and so on. And in the next phase, we want to release our BigQuery Presto plugin with the native execution capabilities, and of course, add an ability to manage native nodes inside of Quix. That's all. Thank you very much.